The Three Gorges Dam, a representative project of the Chinese Communist Party's efforts to conquer and transform nature, poses a threat to the natural environment and the safety of people's lives and property. This video continues to discuss the issues with the Three Gorges Dam. The Three Gorges Dam is a Tofu Dreg project. On July 1, 2019, a piece of news about the deformation of the Three Gorges Dam circulated on the internet. The author also attached 2 Google satellite images of the dam, taken in different years. This sparked a heated discussion about the dam's deformation, the quality of its construction, and its safety. Dr. Wang Wei-luo, a renowned water conservancy expert, said in an interview with the Epoch Times that he had worked in the area for a long time and found the construction quality of the early phase of the dam was very poor. There were many cavities beneath the dam's foundation on the right bank. As a result of insufficient mixing and temperature control at the time, thermal expansion and contraction led to the formation of cavities within the dam body, which in turn introduced fractures and leaking. An engineer surnamed Liu, who personally participated in the construction quality supervision of the Three Gorges Dam, told the Epoch Times that there had been serious quality issues during the concrete pouring process, but the news was suppressed by the Three Gorges Project leadership group under the State Council. Zhang Guangdou, one of the leaders of the quality inspection team for the Three Gorges Dam project, wrote a letter to Guo Shuyan, Deputy Director of the Three Gorges Project Construction Committee of the State Council, with regards to the construction quality. In the letter, Mr. Zhang wrote, "Regarding the quality of the Three Gorges project, our quality inspection report was quite reserved, mainly for fear of criticism. The quality is mediocre, this should be clear. It's not as bad as Tofu Dreg's, but it's not very good either. The key issue is that the construction pace was rushed. The Hoover Dam in the United States, with its 2.5 million cubic meters of concrete, was completed in 21 months. In 2000, the Three Gorges project had a concrete pouring volume of 5.5 million cubic meters, equivalent to constructing more than 2 Hoover dams in 1 year. Originally, the Three Gorges Dam was designed to adopt the method used by the Hoover Dam, mixing the cement with ice water and embedding cooling water pipes in the dam for temperature control. However, this plan was abandoned in order to set a world record for concrete pouring. The problem with pouring the dam's concrete too quickly is the high internal temperature, leading to the formation of cavities and fractures. Qian Zhengying, another leader of the Phase 1 quality inspection team for the Three Gorges project, mentioned in a speech in 2002 that there had been issues and many defects during the pouring of the concrete for the Three Gorges Dam. In December last year, our expert team issued a yellow card warning for the permanent Shiplock here. We saw many surface defects, especially on the overflow phase of the concrete, and we were genuinely concerned about whether these defects could be properly addressed in such a short time. Before coming here this time, after Mr. Zhang Guangdou and I read the related reports, we were very worried. To be honest, I had a red card in my pocket and was prepared to issue the red card to the permanent Shiplock if the defects had not been properly addressed. A yellow card warning on a construction site necessitates immediate rectification but doesn't require a stop. A red card, on the other hand, mandates an immediate halt to construction. Qian Zhengying and Zhang Guangdou neither pulled a red card nor a yellow one, mainly for fear of criticism, as stated in Zhang Guangdou's letter to Guo Shuyan. On May 21, 2003, Pan Jiazeng, the leader of the technical evaluation of the Three Gorges project, made a speech at the meeting of the State Council's Three Gorges Project Acceptance Group, outlining 5 major issues concerning the quality of the Three Gorges Dam project, one of which was the problem with the Three Gorges Shiplock. Pan Jiazeng stated, in the first half of 2002, the Three Gorges Project quality inspection team drilled holes in the concrete at the bottom of the Shiplock and found cavities. Some of these cavities are in key areas where 800-ton gates are placed. How many cavities are there in the concrete at the bottom of the Shiplock? How big are these cavities? These questions can only be answered by continued drilling. Only after determining the location and volume of these cavities can remediation measures like fill casting be applied to ensure the quality of the project. However, the leaders of the Three Gorges Project only considered the project's progress and decided to apply a layer of chemical coating to the fractured parts of the concrete at the bottom of the shiplock to prevent leaking. Pan Jiazeng also mentioned the stability issue of the high side slope of the Three Gorges shiplock. He also pointed out the two-line 5-stage shiplock is dug out of a granite slope, with two 170 to 180 meters deep trenches. Despite special treatment measures for the side slopes, due to the scale of the project, issues still exist. According to a 2009 research report titled Comprehensive Treatment Technology for Defects in Hydraulic Structures by the 3rd Engineering Bureau of China Hydropower, defects exist in the concrete of the 1st to 5th stage shiplocks of the Three Gorges Project. According to the 2006 survey statistics, the cumulative length of water-seeping fractures in the north-south line shiplocks totaled 4,688 meters across 733 instances. These fractures and leaks were subsequently remedied to meet design requirements. After the Three Gorges Reservoir was impounded, the local climate was changed, with unusual instances of extreme heat, drought, and continuous torrential rains, leading to flooding in the reservoir area and its surroundings. Fan Xiao, geological expert and former chief engineer of the Sichuan Provincial Bureau of Geology and Mineral Resources Regional Survey Team, said in an interview with First Financial, "Since the Three Gorges Reservoir began storing water in 2003, there have been noticeable changes in the reservoir's climate, including temperature, humidity, and precipitation." According to Fan Xiao, local residents have reported significant climatic changes after the Three Gorges Reservoir was impounded, with hotter summers and colder winters. Previously, the peak summer temperatures were usually around 38 degrees Celsius, but now it frequently exceeds 40 degrees Celsius for prolonged periods. In their research, Fan Xiao and other experts found something more striking than the changes in the reservoir's climate. That is, continuous catastrophic torrential rains have occurred in the northeastern region of Sichuan province, primarily including Dazhou, Bazhong, Guang'an, Nanchong in Sichuan, and Kai County in Chongqing. Dozens to hundreds of kilometers north of the Three Gorges Reservoir area were affected, with Dazhou being the worst affected. During their on-site monitoring, these experts discovered that in September 2004, the second year after the reservoir was impounded, Dazhou, historically known for drought 9 out of 10 years, experienced a rare catastrophic flood due to torrential rain, a calamity unseen for centuries. The water level in many towns along the river rose as much as 20 to 30 meters. Some local residents in their 80s and 90s told me that they have never seen such a flood in their lifetimes, Fan Xiao said. People may not have thought at the time that this was just the beginning of years of catastrophic torrential rains in northeastern Sichuan, as if a Pandora's box of floods had been abruptly opened. By taking into account factors such as the duration, scope, precipitation volume, flood water level, casualties, and direct economic losses of torrential rain events, experts have compiled statistics on these events in northeastern Sichuan from 2004 to 2014. They found that there were at least 32 instances of torrential rain during this period, 97% of which were heavy downpours with 100 to 250 millimeters of rainfall in 24 hours, or torrential downpours exceeding 250 millimeters in 24 hours. Out of these 32 instances of torrential rain, the economic loss data collected from 23 instances amounted to a direct economic loss of 29.71 billion RMB, or approximately 4.24 billion US dollars. In addition, among the 12 instances where data on deaths and missing persons were collected, a total of 198 people died and 106 people went missing. What were once sporadic instances of torrential rain and floods in history have now become the norm, Fan Xiao said. and each torrential rain event is accompanied by dozens or even hundreds of geological disasters. In a 2006 study, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration reported that they used satellite data and high-precision digital simulation techniques to analyze the impact of the Three Gorges Reservoir on regional rainfall and surface temperatures. Their primary conclusion was that the Three Gorges Project significantly increased precipitation in the area between the Daba Mountains and the Qingling Mountains north of the Yangtze River. After the Three Gorges Reservoir began storing water, the flow of water significantly slowed down, and the surface area of the water increased from 445 square kilometers to 1,045 square kilometers. The resulting increase in evaporation produced a large amount of water vapor. The ever-increasing water vapor led to continuously rising temperatures, which in turn caused more water vapor to be absorbed by the air, creating a spiral of temperature increases and water vapor absorption. Water vapor can also double the greenhouse effect of carbon dioxide. Since water bodies have a greater heat capacity than land, the rate of heating and cooling in the air above the reservoir slows down, stabilizing the atmosphere over the water and leading to relatively less convective precipitation in the reservoir area. In general, the larger the surface area and volume of a reservoir, the greater the scope of its impact on the surrounding climate. The increase in precipitation in the areas surrounding the reservoir is amplified by the presence of tall mountain ranges in the upwind region of the reservoir. The drier the climate, the more apparent the climatic effect of the reservoir, said Fan Xiao. According to observations from 12 meteorological stations along the reservoir, each station experienced a decrease in annual precipitation after the Three Gorges Reservoir began storing water. The stations at Fengjie and Exi saw a 20% and 27% decrease respectively compared to the yearly average, with annual precipitation between Fengjie and Yichang in the reservoir area being 10 to 20% less than the yearly average. Meanwhile, the average annual temperature increased at all stations, with the temperature difference between areas close to and far from the reservoir suddenly increasing. Statistical analysis shows that this change is due to the increase in the water surface area. Contrary to expectations, there was no noticeable cooling effect during the summer, and the overall trend was towards warmer temperatures. In 2013, the Chongqing region experienced rare extreme high temperatures, a record that was broken again in 2017. By 2022, the number of extremely hot days reached a new high, along with unprecedented large-scale drought. Official data shows that from mid to late July to late August 2022, most of Sichuan province and Chongqing city experienced extreme heat, the likes of which hadn't been seen in 60 years, with temperatures reaching up to 45 degrees Celsius and average rainfall 51% lower than in previous years. Due to the prolonged high temperatures and drought, forest fires occurred in areas such as Fuling, Jiangjin, Banan, and Beibei in Chongqing from August 18 to 26. In addition, the Three Gorges Project introduces a multitude of serious issues, including problems with sediment deposition, deterioration of water quality, induced geological disasters, and more. On the one hand, the party dispatches so-called experts, essentially. Moreover, the CCP invested heavily in further projects to obscure the mistakes of the Three Gorges Project. For example, the Three Gorges Dam has cut off the Yangtze River waterway, causing ships to wait several days to pass through the Three Gorges Lock. To address this, the authorities launched the Three Gorges Overdam project, which involves constructing ports upstream and downstream of the dam. Goods are unloaded from ships, transported by large trucks to the other port, and then loaded onto ships again, thus bypassing the Three Gorges Dam. Just the 57.8 kilometer overdam highway of the project costed 4 billion RMB, or around $573 million US. And with the additional construction costs of the upstream and downstream ports, the total price tag is even higher. The authorities claim this alleviates pressure on the Three Gorges Lock, The CCP has also built large hydropower stations such as Xiangjiangba, Xiluodu, Baihetan, and Wudongde on the Jinsha River, upstream of the Yangtze River. On the surface, it appears to be a profit-driven venture harnessing green energy. However, there are other considerations. First, when the Jinsha River has a high flow, it can store floodwaters to relieve pressure on the Three Gorges Dam. Second, it can filter sediments for the Three Gorges. Yet, everything has its contradictions. The construction of these dams also poses risks to the Three Gorges Dam. No man-made structures last forever. If any dam has an incident, tens of billions of cubic meters of stored water will pour downstream, destroying dams along its path and sweeping the water from the downstream reservoir along with it. In such a scenario, the Three Gorges Dam would also be washed away, causing devastating flooding in the vast area downstream. The Yangtze to Han River Water Diversion Project, which is also associated with the Three Gorges Dam, officially commenced construction on July 7, 2022, in Danjiangkou City, Hubei Province. With an investment of nearly 60 billion RMB, approximately 8.5 billion US dollars, the project involves constructing a 194-kilometer-long tunnel, about 10 meters in diameter, from the Three Gorges Reservoir area through the Daba Mountains to divert water to the Han River section downstream of the Danjiangkou Reservoir, with an annual water diversion capacity of 3.9 billion cubic meters. The authorities claim this project is a follow-up to the South to North Water Diversion Project, aimed at maintaining the water volume downstream of the Han River. Another significant function of this project is that it provides the Three Gorges Dam with an additional flood discharge channel. After the Three Gorges Project began its operation, the dam has faced a dilemma whenever a flood occurs. Releasing water would flood Wuhan City downstream, while not releasing it would flood Chongqing City upstream. By diverting a portion of the water to the Han River, pressure on the Three Gorges Dam will be relieved a little bit. Of course, the water diverted to the Han River will ultimately flow to Wuhan, but this occurs over a period of time, reducing the city's flood pressure. The primary conclusion of the Three Gorges Ecological and Environmental Impact Report was that the impact of the Three Gorges Project on the ecological environment has both advantages and disadvantages, with the disadvantages outweighing the advantages. However, some disadvantages can be limited or mitigated through engineering measures. Hou Xueyu disagreed with the latter part of this conclusion and refused to sign the final report. Instead, he submitted his separate opinion to the Project Evaluation Leadership Group, stating, "From the perspective of the impact on the ecological environment and resources, the issue of the Three Gorges Project is not about the time of day or the height of the dam, but fundamentally whether it should proceed." This conclusion of the report posed a significant challenge for Pan Jiazeng, the head of the Three Gorges Project Evaluation Leadership Group, especially given that the CCP Central Committee and the State Council had already approved of the project. On July 6, 1990, at the Project Evaluation Report meeting convened by the State Council, Pan Jiazeng altered the conclusion of the Ecological Environment Report from the disadvantages outweighing the advantages to the impact of the Three Gorges Project on the ecological environment is widespread and profound. Following this, the two leaders of the Ecological Environment Group passed away. Hou Xueyu died at the age of 79 due to illness at the affiliated hospital of Beijing Medical University on April 16, 1991. Ma Shijun died at the age of 76 in a car accident on May 30, 1991, with the case still unclear to this day. The deaths of these two experts effectively silenced opposition to the Three Gorges Project among experts. After the Three Gorges Project, a new decision-making pattern emerged. As long as the leadership decides to proceed with the project, experts are compelled to prove its feasibility rather than genuinely investigating whether the project is feasible. The project undermined the integrity of Chinese experts in speaking the truth, setting a poor precedent for future generations. In conclusion, regardless of how positively the CCP propagandized the Three Gorges Project, it is in fact a failure when viewed from multiple angles. The arrogant ambition to conquer and transform nature was bound to fail.